Welcome to today's episode where we'll discuss tactics commonly used by insurance companies during a personal injury case. We're joined by Henry Queener, a highly experienced car accident attorney known for his dedication to securing maximum compensation for his clients. Over his career, Henry has recovered millions of dollars for those injured in motor vehicle accidents, making him a leading advocate in personal injury law in Tennessee and Kentucky. His deep understanding of insurance company tactics and his success in negotiating with major insurers make him the perfect guest to help us navigate this complex topic. Now, let's dive into some of the tactics insurance companies use and how you can protect yourself. But first, I'd like to welcome Henry. Henry, thank you for agreeing to talk to us today about this topic.
Thanks for having me back, Bobby. I'm glad to help.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on, and I'm glad to talk about some of these issues because a lot of people are just completely unaware of a lot of the tactics that are being used against them. They think that the insurance adjuster might be really friendly, really cares about them, but from your experience, we know otherwise. So that kind of brings me to the first question of today's interview. How do insurance adjusters use a friendly approach to get information from accident victims, and why should people be cautious?
Well, the law that governs how an adjuster has to behave towards you and what an adjuster has to tell you varies a lot by state. So we'll just talk generally about Tennessee and Kentucky. And generally, they'll start off friendly as long as you're doing what they want you to do. But the moment you push back or question or inquire about, well, what is it you want exactly? Then they'll switch on you and start becoming a little more combative sometimes. So just because they're being nice to you doesn't mean that they are confused about what their job is. Their job is to get an insurance company out of that situation, paying as little money as possible.
So what is this this tactic? They're acting like your friend. Why is that a tactic that they employ against you?
Well, to disarm you and make it and convince you that they're there to help you. They're there to just do a fair and impartial investigation of what happened and gather information. No, they're there to get an insurance company out of the situation, paying as little money as possible. So when they're gathering information, they're not gathering it to do an impartial investigation. They're gathering that information to figure out, can they manipulate it, spin it, reorganize it, create a narrative where
Hmm.
they're getting an insurance company out of the situation without paying money or paying as little money as possible. So even though they're being very nice, you'd better have your ears pricked up and you better have your spidey sense on. Why are they asking me these questions? Even though they're asking me very nicely, what is it they're getting at? Well, they're trying to get you to stumble into saying something that they can use to create a narrative that they use to then deny your claim.
Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Like they want you to incriminate yourself or say something that could potentially incriminate yourself to
Well,
push
yes, I
the
mean, like, well, did you stop and then go and then stop again, Mr. Jones? Type questions. Well, do you think maybe you were following a little too closely? And then you just trying to be polite, go, well, I guess I could have been back a little further. Well, there you go. You just gave the person a fact that they can spin to say, well, you're going to have to pay, you're getting less because you're following too closely.
you
And
know
you're being
Another
polite.
thing I've also heard people say too is, they ask you, very common. Like if I see you, I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Just making small talk, right? And most people, what's the default answer? They'll say, well, I'm doing fine, and then they get you to say that, and I'm like, well, look, we called him. He said he's doing fine. They try to minimize your damages in that case, and it sounds crazy that they would try to use something like that, just small talk to create that narrative against you, but it's very common. Is that something that you see too as well?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They'll ask you that, just like you said, that question. How are you doing today? And you won't even think about it. It will not be a considered response. You will just give the same knee jerk response we all give. Well, I'm doing fine. You know, or well, I'm doing better now. I'm doing fine. And then they will make note of that in their file. And then when it comes time to make an offer to you, they will throw that back in your face, going, you have no continuing problems. You are not still experiencing pain, discomfort, soreness, headaches, because you said 3 days after your auto wreck, quote, I'm doing fine. And you're going, that's not what I meant. Well, too late. They already took your words out of your mouth and have spun them and created a narrative where you have no ongoing problems. So, yes, you always have to be careful when dealing with an insurance company in that way. You also need to be careful when they start asking you for stuff. Well,
Hmm.
can you go get the police report for us? Can you go get these medical records for us and those medical records for us? They'll start giving you a laundry list of tasks to do, and we call this stringing you out.
Mm.
Do is they try to give you a in Tennessee, particularly because in Tennessee we have a 1 year statute of limitations. And so you have 1 year to preserve your rights or they're forever lost. And so if an insurance company can string you out for a calendar year, telling you, well, you just keep going back to the doctor until you're better. We understand you need to go to the doctor. Just keep going to the doctor. Now go back to the doctor and get all these records and bills and itemizations from the doctor. And then when that 1 year comes up, they don't ever return your phone call again.
Yeah.
You're not required in Tennessee to tell you when your 1 year is up or even what the consequences are when your 1 year is up. And so you have to be very careful in Tennessee when dealing with an adjuster. In Tennessee, an adjuster can treat you the same as they would treat an attorney, and they are allowed to expect that you will understand the law as well as an attorney. And the adjuster, by the way, they're trained in the law in their area. They can be almost as good as an attorney some of the time.
Hmm. That brings me to my second question. Them asking you for things. I know a lot of them will ask for medical releases. Why do insurance companies ask for medical releases? And then what are the potential risks of providing those?
Well, you want to look over a medical release carefully and make sure you understand what you're giving the insurance company access to. Is the medical release limited by provider or is it unlimited? If you give an insurance company an unlimited release, they can then take that release and go get medical records from any provider you've ever had. And so you need to be careful and make sure the release is limited to the hospital you went to, the ambulance service you used, the doctor you followed up with, the PT you received that was related to the car wreck. You want to be careful before you give an insurance company unlimited release. They will then use that release to get medical records from providers you went to years before the car wreck even happened so they can start creating that narrative that your problems today are not because of the car wreck, your problems today are because of what we found in a medical record from 3 or 4 years before the car wreck. And so that's what they're fishing for when they're trying to get a general medical release out of you and the names of some medical providers you may have been to 3 and 4 years before the wreck is they're trying to see if they can create a narrative or story where they can claim all your problems with your shoulder or knee or whatever, all related back to that event 3 or 4 years ago, not to the car wreck that was 2 or 3 months ago.
And of course, if you're working with an attorney, they're going to make sure, or they're going to help you navigate a lot of the complexities in regarding to medical release. Because what you said to me, it's like if I'm hurt, if I'm injured, I don't have to go and chase down all this paperwork and chase down releases and then what releases. It's confusing for anyone really. And I guess that's one of the key benefits of having an attorney there is they know exactly which hoops to jump through to really kind of maximize your damages and get you the most compensation.
We take over that whole process for you. We carefully take care of what medical records and bills the insurance company receives, which ones it doesn't receive. We go through all your medical records to make sure we have all the medical bills that go with the medical records. You may have visited an ER by ambulance, but afterwards you may be unaware that the emergency room doctor may not be employed by the hospital. It's an entirely separate company and you have to go chase down and figure out who's this other company I need to get another medical bill from to get to the insurance company. You may also be unaware that when they do those scans, such as CTs, MRIs, or even x rays, those are sent to yet another doctor called a radiologist who may not even work in the physical location you went to, maybe on the other side of the country, actually. And we go track down the radiologist bill. So you may just get something in the mail from the hospital, which may not even be the complete bill. And it may be weeks or months later before you get a bill from the emergency room doctor's practice group or the radiologist practice group. We take care of that. We go chase all that down to make sure all of that is presented to the insurance company. Because if you settle on your own, once you settle, you've settled. And then when a bill comes in 3, 4, 5 months later, sorry, Charlie, that's all on you. You're expected to know as much as a lawyer does when you're dealing with an insurance company.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's a great leadway into my next question, in regards to why these guys, why these insurance adjusters try to get you to take those quick settlement checks.
Mm,
Um,
absolutely.
you kind of explained that briefly, but why might an insurance company offer that quick settlement check, and why is it advisable to wait? You just said one, with you having additional healthcare costs coming in that you know have taken a while to get billed and sent to you. Are there any others?
Well, first, they're dangling that money because they just want to get that file closed quickly.
Hmm.
But the problem is when they dangle the money, you don't know how much of it you get to keep and how much of it flows right through you to your own health insurance potentially, to pay what we call RBs or remaining balances owed at different providers, such as the emergency room doctor. So you want it, number one, you have the initial or emergent medical care. You got to make sure you got all that and you know how much that is. Then you want to make sure you go through a course of care where you're going to a PCP or your primary care doctor, and that doctor's telling you you're going to be fine. You're a little sore, but you're going to be fine. So you know when you go to talk to the insurance company about settlement, you know how much medical care you owe back, you owe to medical providers in the form of remaining balances. You know how much is owed to your health insurance because, oh, wait a minute, you may not have thought about that, is that after you take the money from the auto insurance, your own health insurance is going to come back to you and expect you're going to reimburse them for what they paid out for the medical treatment related to the car wreck. People never even imagined such. The auto insurance carrier doesn't care that you may get sideways with your own health insurance. They've paid you whatever they paid you, and they close that file. So it's a complicated, interesting, multifaceted transaction. And if you don't realize all the different players in this transaction, and you think it's as simple as taking money from an auto insurance company, you're going to get burned 6, 7, 8 months down the road when you find out there were other parties in this transaction, such as remaining balances at medical providers and your own health insurance. Your own health insurance, if they paid for medical care that was related to the automobile wreck and you got money from an auto insurance company, yes, you have to negotiate, deal with, and pay back something to your own health insurance. And yes, I realize you pay premiums for that health insurance. Doesn't change the answer to that question. It's
Yeah,
tricky stuff, huh?
it is. I mean, it is very complex, and you're saying earlier, a common tactic that they like to do is kind of string you along, right? Is that what you called it, stringing you along? Um,
That's right. They string you in Tennessee, they string you along to the 1 year statute and then dump you. In other states, they have to tell you when your 1 year statute is and inform you of that. They don't have to in Tennessee. And so they take full advantage, stringing you out for a year, being nice to you, and then never returning your phone call again, realizing, sucker, we never have to pay you a nickel. We close this file for free.
so what can victims do to kind of counteract those tactics and prevent that from happening?
Well, you can hire an attorney who
Hmm.
knows all the ins and outs and rules and the way the game is played, or you can try to self-educate. Self-educating is difficult because on Google, if you want to become what we call a Google lawyer, it's difficult. Each state's law is different. Like I said, we're just talking generally about the law in Tennessee and Kentucky. The law in Missouri or Arkansas or Iowa or Indiana, very different than the law
Hmm.
here. So you may go on Google and think you know the answer. Well, it may not be the state specific answer you need. I talk to people a lot in Tennessee who got squeezed up against that 1 year deadline, and they're going, I thought it was 2 years, or I thought it was a year and 6 months, or, well, why did you think that? Well, I saw on Google, oh, Well, each
Yeah.
state has different rules about how long your time is. So you can hire an attorney or you can try to self educate on Google, but it's hard because we don't have a nationalized system of handling this. We have 50 different ways of handling it, all mixed together on Google, you know.
Yeah.
By the way, in this day of AI, I love to go on Google's AI and other AIs and ask the AI legal questions, seeing how good is it getting. And it's like, nope, it's nowhere near. It gives you a gobbledygook answer that mixes together multiple states' laws. So even if you think, oh, I've got the trick, I'll just use AI and ask AI the questions. I don't know, maybe in a couple of years, but it's still goofing it up pretty bad right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You said earlier that one of the things that the insurance adjuster is going to ask from you is typically a recorded statement. Could you
Mhm.
unpack that a little bit, like, and explain, like, what are the dangers of agreeing to a recorded statement with an insurance adjuster, and how should one handle such requests from them?
Okay, I generally tell clients, no, we're not giving recorded statements. And there are two reasons, two different ways that can get you. And that is number one, uh, they'll ask you questions about time, speed, distance, facts of the wreck itself. And unless you've been back out to the scene to walk it over and look at it as you refresh your memory, you really shouldn't be giving a recorded statement about it. I remember representing someone who was pulled off on the side of the road and was rear-ended by a tractor trailer. Terrible, catastrophic kind of event. And she told me, "Oh, my driver's side door was a good 5, 6 feet from the white line." Well, I'd been out there, and that obviously wasn't possible. I mean, she's trying to remember something that for her was the blink of an eye in a very stressful moment. And so I took her back out to the scene before she ever gave a sworn statement in the case so she could see how far it was from the guardrail to the white line and realize how wide her car was and realize, 4 or 5 feet between her door and the white line, it wasn't going to work. I mean, she was more like 2 or 3 feet from the white line, even though she was completely over the white line.
Hmm.
So trying to remember something in the blink of an eye, you know, that you may have been terribly hurt by is tricky, difficult stuff. And don't be giving recorded statements telling the adjuster what happened until you first had an opportunity to review all the camera footage that may be out there from various businesses that are around the wreck, or at least going out to the accident scene and seeing how wide these lanes were, how, how things in sober reflection later look. Um, and by sober, I just mean you're not, all hyped up on adrenaline of the moment.
Hmm.
Number two, they may ask you tricky questions they get out of your insurance policy. I remember I had a client one time and they kept asking him, "Well, sir, was the vehicle garaged upon the property?" And he said, "Well, I guess so. Yeah, it sat in my driveway." "Thank you, sir. That's all we need to know. Bye." And then they turned around and kicked out a letter explaining in detail how he admitted the vehicle was not garaged upon the property as required by the insurance policy. It only sat in the driveway. Well, that's not what he meant. What he meant was it was sitting in the driveway that week because they had something in the garage at the time. And so insurance companies go fishing for you to say just the right things, but you don't even know what you're answering. And then
Hmm.
once they get what they need, they construct a narrative and they kick out a denial letter. So if they're going to ask you about issues involving your policy, you better get a copy of your policy. You better read that policy cover to cover, and you better completely understanding what those words are they're getting out of that policy because you're about to get pop quizzed about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine in a tractor trailer case where the settlement could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. The insurance company has a vested interest to obviously give you a lowball offer, minimize your risks or minimize your injuries, et cetera, et cetera. So it would be highly beneficial for them to use certain surveillance tactics, if that could help decrease their liability. What are some types of surveillance tactics that insurance companies commonly use, and how should victims be aware of this after their accident?
Well, Number one, social media, be careful with social media because there's free surveillance that you'll just give them, you know? So, and we all, it's fake book, right? It's fake book. I mean, this isn't our real lives. This is us, portraying we all want to portray to our friends and family and other people that we're living a wonderful life. Well, after a wreck where you may have been terribly hurt, projecting that you're living a wonderful life can come back to bite you in the butt because the insurance company will then just point to that. They don't need to go get surveillance. Other types of surveillance are just almost like you see on television or in the movies. They hire a private investigative firm or a third party vendor adjustment service that will simply go out and have somebody in a car videotape you walking to your mailbox or not. They'll then take that and they will slice and dice that up to make it look like you skipped out to your mailbox without any trouble whatsoever. And so they may film you, videotape you, they may take pictures of you in the public sphere. They have to be, and they're very careful and know exactly where they can be and can't be when they're taking pictures of you. And then they cut it up, slice it and dice it, and oftentimes give it to your attorney to convince your attorney that you're faking, you're not really that hurt. And then your attorney will sit down and you'll become very mad as you see how they've very carefully curated a lot of video to try to show someone who's not hurt. But the best advice I can give you is in this area when it comes to social media, be careful after a wreck conveying how wonderful your life is and how everything's just perfect because they'll just use that as free surveillance of you
Mhm.
against you.
Mhm. You know, we've discussed how they really obviously it's in the best interest to push lowball offers on you. How should victims negotiate with the adjuster, or how should the attorney negotiate with the adjuster to
With
guarantee
facts.
that they receive fair compensation? Yeah.
With facts. This isn't this isn't about bull crapping. I mean, this is about facts, and a good attorney gathers the facts of the full picture of the malfeasance of the trucking company and the driver and the maintenance of the truck and the maintenance of the trailer, everything. Yes, you were rear-ended by a tractor trailer, but what role did the driver play? What role did the equipment play? What role did the company pushing the driver too hard play? Gathering those facts, gathering the facts of all the different medical bills, the ER doctor, the radiologist, along with the ambulance bill and the facility bill from the emergency department, getting the full picture of what your road to recovery has been and what your road to recovery is going to be, gathering all the information, gathering all the medical bills for every single scan and CT and MRI, every single doctor's visit, gathering all those bills, and then presenting it all, the whole mountain that is the case to the insurance company. So the insurance company can't blow it off and the insurance company can't, you know, claim it's a small case. They as they try to create a narrative, you go, look, I've laid it all out in perfect apple pie order in a demand for you. Quit trying to spin it. You're not going to be able to do it anymore because I brought all the facts to bear on the situation. And so that's how you maximize a personal injury settlement with an insurance company is get out of their game, which is just creating narratives and BS, and gather all the information and facts and then put them together in the correct order so that they cannot obfuscate or spin or create narratives anymore to try to lowball you. If you play
Yeah.
their BS and you know that's just don't play their game. Okay, play the gather information game so that there's no weaseling out for the insurance company.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Henry, we're almost out of time today. Is there any, last statement or anything that you'd like to say before we bring this interview to a close?
I feel like I should start making this my catchphrase. Maybe I'm going to go with it. Take pictures. Take lots and lots of pictures. When you're at the scene of a wreck, take pictures of your car. Take pictures of the other person. If you're able to, take pictures of the person's driver's license, the front of their car, the back of the car. You can't take too many pictures. And you got your phone, and we have fill the phone with pictures for me. because later on, insurance companies will twist facts. People will intentionally or unintentionally change their stories. Marks on roadways will wear off as cars travel those roadways after your wreck. So that's my number one advice: is take lots of pictures. Number two, reach out to an attorney who does this type of work, who does automobile wreck. If you want to have your will written, reach out to a probate and wills lawyer. If you want to have, if you need a car wreck attorney, reach out to an attorney who does a great deal of car wreck. So that would be my 2 words of advice. Pictures being my new catchphrase.
You remember that Geico commercial? Geico used to have a commercial that says 15 minutes or less, we could save you like $1,500. Or do you remember that commercial?
I do. I do. 15 minutes of photographs, and you're
Yeah.
going to be better later on.
Well, and I just think that if you could just spend 15 minutes just calling an attorney, explaining to them the situation and just seeing like what your rights are and just, learning about like, hey, just avoid doing this, avoid doing that could really, 15 minutes could save you thousands of dollars.
Yes.
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
Yes, and remember, these calling an attorney does not mean you're going to get a bill in the mail. I
Mhm.
mean, Queener Law, the call, consultation, time on the phone is always free. We're not your attorney until you sign an agreement with us. Before that, all the talking is free and all the advice is free.
Yeah.
So why not call us? If you don't like us, we're not your cup of tea. That's fine. No hurt feelings. It didn't cost you anything. So 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it takes to answer all your questions is going to be free here.
That's great. That's great. Well, as we wrap up today's discussion, we'd like to thank Henry Queener for sharing his invaluable insights into these tactics used by insurance companies during personal injury cases. So thank you very much, Henry, for coming on today's episode. And for our listeners and watchers today, if you found this content helpful, please like, subscribe, and share this episode with others. If you have any questions or need help with your personal injury case, you can always reach out to Henry at his website at queenerlaw.com. We'll put that up on the screen for you. Thanks you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.